Welcome to another episode of the Cowboy Creatives on the Next Generation podcast. I switched it up for y'all this time. So if you were listening to multiple in a row, said the Cowboy Creatives first. But anywho, we are here with my amazing co-host, Lindsay Miller. And today we are doing a horror story recap. Very excited about this. Purely for entertainment purposes only.
Well, no, this is educational as well because hopefully people on both sides of the spectrum can learn. I will say that. So this was actually a TikTok that came out in August, and I sent it to Lauren. Are we diving right in?
Yeah, we're diving right in. Okay. We're diving right in.
This is a TikTok. I was scrolling TikTok and I found this and I watched it all the way through and I sent it to Lauren. I'm like, we have to. This is a horror story if I've ever heard one on both ends. On both ends. I would be scared to be. I mean, I will just say there's ways both parties are a little bit at fault here in my professional opinion and personal opinion. I will say before we dive into this, I have worked with photographers as well, being the client. I'm not always just the photographer. So
yes, we'll be coming at it from both ways. We really will. And we're trying, we're very much putting on a lens of the photographer screwed up and the client screwed up. There were ways that
things they could have done better.
Communication, some expectations, things they could have done better, different things like that. So
this is still entertainment. So we're going to be unhinged. But
Lindsay's opinionated about this.
I am.
She's worked up. We just re-listened to it because we would have played it, but it's
I'm ready to run a mile.
It is. It's 2 full minutes long, you all guys. So we're just gonna give you a Cliff Notes version. And yeah, Lindsay's worked up. I had to give her 30 seconds to
calm down. Yeah, because I could I feel like those guys who are ready to beat their chest and go to war. I'm
oh my gosh,
I'm just joking. Both sides. So let's just give you guys. We're not gonna say anybody's names or anything, but came across a TikTok video, and I'm just gonna give you my Cliff Notes from it. I say TikTok girl who books a family photographer every year, and she's playing with photographers to do better. She feels bamboozled for yet another year in a row with another photographer. So, Lauren, do you have any initial thoughts off the title of my Cliff Notes?
No, I feel like that is a good title. We do want to specify she also has booked a different photographer every year. So this isn't as a recurring issue with the same photographer year over year. She books a different photographer year after year.
It is important to note that she said that photographers are losing her business, and it's not because of the booking process. It's not because of I'm getting
her editing style.
Yeah, there are things that she's gonna have concerns about editing wise, but I feel like it's kind of a communication breakdown, honestly.
Yeah.
On both sides. But anyways, some of the key things we're going to talk about. The client, the girl on TikTok who made the video, I will say kudos for her. I did not see anything. I didn't go to her profile, so don't quote me on it. But from the one specific video that popped up on my For You page, she never mentioned the photographer's name.
Yep.
She did show the photographer's work, but I personally did not see the photographer's name anywhere. So thank you to the client for not
putting them on blast.
Yes. Yeah. So the client is concerned about how long the turnaround time was. The client is concerned about the photographer posting the images to social media. The client is concerned about the photographer is kind of being wishy-washy on this whole free detail shots. And that's something that's super interesting.
So this was a gallery that so the way that Lindsay and I do galleries is very different than this photographer's setup. So when you book a session with me, I don't really have image limits on what you're going to get. I just edit the photos that are good and don't edit the photos that are bad.
Well, I do have I have an hour session and you get 50 images.
You're going to get about this many.
You're not going to get less, but I'm also, so one thing, let's just say this right out of the gate, that it sounds like, and don't quote us on this, we don't know who the photographer is. We have not directly spoken to the photographer or to the client. This is just something that popped up. It was going nuts on social media. So we're let's talk about it. Yeah. So it kind of, to me, Lauren, correct me if you think I'm wrong. It kind of sounds like the photographer maybe is really technical about, oh, you're going to get this many photos of the kids and this many photos of the group and then this many photos of you and your husband. And then I'm going to do these things called detail shots and you're going to get free ones of those. I'm not even going to charge you for those.
Yeah.
So it sounds like she's really itemizing her sessions, which,
well, and it was it was supposed to be like a short session with like, I think a total of like 12 or 20 delivered images at the end of it. And so this photographer, what she's probably doing is she is going in and she is sending like a online gallery with a watermark over it, and the client gets to go through and pick images that they want like fully edited, really photoshopped, really detailed, like all of those things.
Well, and the photographer kind of hints during the session from what we're gathering. We're only seeing one side of it right now. We're hearing the client's perspective. The client is portraying that basically the photographer is like, oh yeah, I'm going to go in, I'm going to edit out something that the client talks about in her TikTok is her boob tape. Apparently the photographer said, I'll edit that out. Then the photographer also mentions during the session that she will edit out any flyaway hairs. I think we're all guilty as photographers. Out the kids'
faces or stuff like that. Like,
well,
this
and
is
I
a
don't
family
know,
session.
Like, and I guess I'm not quite clear on if the photographer said, like, I'm just going to say this, you guys. The client is heated. She's fed up. She feels bamboozled. She's using curse words on social media. I mean, the girl is coming for that photographer. She says she has been bamboozled yet again. And if anybody said they were bamboozled by my business, I'm going to assume they're not a happy client. So,
anyway, keep saying your cliff notes, and then we'll go into the details.
So then the client says, and she screams it a little bit at the camera. Me being an unhinged person, I can sense when somebody else is being unhinged. Okay, let me just say that.
She has the spidey senses.
Spidey sense. I can tell another unhinged girly when I see one, and I was seeing one. Okay. So she said, so the client says that contract only protects her and only her. We'll get to that. That's a cliff note. And then the client is concerned. Sorry. So sorry. I mean, is concerned about her husband's shorts that fit him like a glove apparently got ruined in some sort of water. And then again, like Lauren talked about, she's concerned that there's good photos, but the photographer did not switch out to a face swap. If you are listening and you're not a photographer, a face swap is when you go in manually on Photoshop, not in Lightroom, but you go into Photoshop and you literally take a picture where child number 1 is smiling at the camera and you take their head off of their body and you put it on the image where everybody else looks good and you legitimately Photoshop a new face onto your child. Where they weren't like that in the real time. Now, some photographers do that, some photographers don't. And then she consistently keeps talking about how this session costs damn near $600. So those are my biggest cliff notes I took away. Lauren, what did you take away that we'll talk about?
I think
if there's anything you missed.
I don't think there's anything you missed. We'll talk about all of those things. I don't think there's anything you missed. So
I think the biggest thing right out of the gate is that the client now apparently allegedly the photographer's contract says that she will see photos within 24 hours. But there's a little bit of disconnect because from what the client is telling us on TikTok, it kind of sounds like the client gets to choose what pictures are edited. Are you kind of getting the same vibe from that, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay. So if that was the case, me as a photographer, I don't offer this, first of all. I decide you're hiring me for my expertise in culling and delivering and editing the best possible images. That's just the way I run my business. Everybody's different. You can do what you want to do. If I had my contract, you're going to see the images within 24 hours. That to me doesn't mean I'm editing them. If you're getting to choose them, like it sounds like this photographer is doing, it sounds like you're just going to see all the raws essentially. And then you're going to pick out what 21s you want me to edit. And it doesn't, the client is portraying that the photographer did not do that. And we're kind of like lost in the disconnect a little bit. I don't feel like the client ever really tells us when she got to choose the images. But that happens somewhere along the way. It sounds like the photographer promised sneak peeks, which again, I don't personally, and Lauren, maybe you heard it, but I didn't. I didn't see where the client was like specific on when the sneak peeks were going to be coming. Did you hear it?
No, I didn't either.
Okay.
And I also am a little on like some disconnect on the fact of like, if your turnaround time is supposed to be like the 2 weeks or whatever, why do you need to send sneak peeks if you're only delivering a gallery with 15
I personally,
photos?
if you're listening out there and you're a photographer, I've had clients ask me like, hey, do you do sneak peeks for sessions?
No.
Me personally, I don't. I will do sneak peeks for weddings.
For weddings, yes.
For
but
weddings,
for sessions,
yeah.
no. Because my turnaround time is like, right now it's at 2 weeks and it is always a
Me too.
max 4 weeks. And so it's like, if you really need one right now, like if you're a senior or something and you're like, dude, they're yelling at me for a yearbook photo like right now, I'll go and get one for you, or like you can go and pick one super quick and
then
I'll
you pick the wrong one and they're like, oh, can I see some more? It's a ball that just starts rolling down the hill.
Luckily that's only happened once, and my client, like, well, the senior was super chill about it, but and so it's just one of those things that I don't see the purpose. I don't see the purpose of them. So that's just us personally for regular sessions, because you're gonna get them so quickly. Whereas like for a wedding, it's like obviously you want to post it that day.
Yeah, we both also do weddings, and Lauren also does sale photos for livestock, and those are like huge projects, you guys. Yeah. So for me,
when I'm getting sneak peeks with your sale photos, if you're a sale photo client listening, you get your photos in 24 hours. So no sneak peeks for you. You're not getting them in 5.
In my opinion, like there are photographers that just do sessions, and maybe for those photographers it makes sense to do sneak peeks because they don't have a wedding that's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of images they're culling and editing and the whole 9 yards, right? So that's just my personal 2 cents on it. But let's get back to the client, the bamboozled client on TikTok. So she's really concerned about how long the turnaround time is, and mostly because, and now I know clients do this and it can be really hard. Hear me, if you're a client out there and you're listening, hear me from the photographer's point of view. We book clients by putting our lives and our behind the scenes and what we're working on out there on social media. So like, just because I'm editing your photos doesn't mean I can't be posting that another client's getting a session done with me. Just because I'm editing your photos doesn't mean I can't post that, hey, I have to go to the grocery store today. Like, we literally booked you as our client. So pretty pictures are just not enough anymore these days, you guys. You have to put yourself out there online. We've talked about this a little bit in past episodes about social media strategy. So if you want to go back and check that out, please do. It's a few episodes back. But like, you can't just expect your photographer for you to be their only client, and after they've taken your pictures, they've just gone MIA from social media. They can't post what they're doing. They can't post what they're working on. You're like, you need to take, in my opinion, in this case, the client does need to take a bit of a chill pill. I know you're anxious. We all know you're anxious. And I always tell my clients this. I'm like, trust me, I want you to get the photos just as quickly as you want you to get the photos. The faster they can get edited and out of my hands and into your hands, the better my life is. Like, I don't sit here and I'm like, I don't sit here and I'm not like, oh, I wonder how long I can keep such and such pictures on my hard drive without editing them. Like, what? Are you like, do you seriously think people do that? Like, that's insane. So she's really concerned about how long the turnaround time is. I will say this. Keep in mind, unless your photographer is charging you how much they need to pay yearly on their vehicle, their mortgage, their insurances, their groceries, other costs of living, you are not their only client. They have other clients. They're trying to do everybody's pictures. If you're not okay with that,
give your photographer grace. I think that's what it comes down to. As a client, give your photographer grace. And then as a photographer, give your clients grace and use this as a really great educational area where like you can educate your clients that like, hey, so this is kind of like, you don't need to come at it in a like really heated sense that like Lindsay and I are in right now. It's like, you can come at it in a sense. You can come at it in a sense of this is a good educational moment to educate your clients on your workflow and why it takes so long to do XYZ, or like the fact that like, hey, I had so much fun at your photo session right now. It is busy season right now, so I'm shooting a lot right now. I'm doing a lot of people's photos, so my turnaround time is going to be at 3 to 4 weeks. And setting that expectation early and just communication, because a lot of the issue that happened in this scenario that we are presenting to you was just a lack of communication. And so I think from both sides, you can use it as like give grace to your clients for asking, but also clients give grace to your photographer for taking time.
So essentially, like, and I told when we hosted our workshop, the Cowboy Kind of Lover, when Lauren hosted that workshop and I was a part of
It was
it there.
ours. You're fine.
Sorry, let me just come on in there. Lauren was wrangling horses, and I took a moment to kind of explain to the creatives that were there to say, okay, so we were kind of done with the shoot that we were doing, and everybody's kind of just like standing around. I took it as a teaching moment. I'm like, okay, so when I feel like I have all of the necessary photos that I need for the session or for the wedding, usually what I do is I make sure there's still light left, and I talk to the client like, hey, is there any like last minute photos that you wanted to do that like you maybe did with another photographer, or you did at your wedding? A lot of families recreate the same pose every single year, and they want that. There's like a viral one on TikTok where like the husband has the wife on his shoulders,
Yes,
and
on
then
his
she
shoulders
puts a
and the
kid
baby.
on.
Yep.
I mean, I'm pretty sure they got like 7 kids, and they like the Leaning Tower of Pisa up. But anyways, it like progresses year to year.
Yes.
But like I take that moment to kind of like put it back in their core and be like, hey, tell me if there's anything else you want me to do. And then when they're like, oh no, I think we're good, I'm like, okay, well then I feel like I have all the photos that I need. And we kind of start walking back to the vehicle if we're like out on a trail or a pretty field or somewhere.
Yep.
And as we're walking back, that's when I take that moment to kind of like debrief them. And I'm like, I'm so glad you guys booked me. It was so nice to meet you guys. Your kids are so well behaved. Or hey, when you guys leave, if you're going out and you want to get something, there's like a Chick-fil-A over here or an In-N-Out, or there's a nice steakhouse. So just kind of like briefly touch base with them a little bit, so it's not just like, okay, goodbye, have a nice life, you know. Because I feel like also the bamboozled client on TikTok, she uses the terminology multiple times in this TikTok rant that the photographers just show up and take your money, take some pictures, and then they ghost you, which it doesn't sound like this photographer ghosted her, but it's kind of like, it's kind of what she's trying to paint the picture as, in my opinion. Anyways, and then when we get back to the car, we're about ready to go. I can kind of tell her they're ready to go. I'm like, okay, just so you guys know, it does take, right now, it's taking me about 2 weeks to edit all of my pictures. Now, inside my contract, I'm not telling them this, but they should have read the contract when they booked me. That was information that was their job to read that information when I sent them the contract months before when we booked this. It says in there, I give myself 21 days, 21 business days to edit a gallery. And then if I've gone over that 21 business days, then we got problems, right? But my contract gives me 21 business days. So I always have that to fall back on. Not that I'm keeping that a secret from them, because I send you the contract. You can read it word for word. It's right there. You're signing it. And if you're signing any sort of contract, you should be reading it, right? Yeah, like that's your own fault if you're not reading it. So then when we get back to the car, I tell them, I'm like, okay, so it's taking me about 2 weeks right now to edit your pictures. If it goes longer than that, just know. And I kind of like tell them I'm a human. I'm like, that means something terribly has gone wrong in my life and I'm really behind, but don't worry, I will get them to you before our contracted date. So I remind them before we leave, we have a contracted date. So I'm setting the tone. I'm going to try to get them by 2 weeks. That's where I'm typically at right now. But we also have a contracted date. And then I tell them they're going to come to you via email. They're going to be just like how you signed the contract. They're going to be an online gallery, yada, yada, yada. Literally debriefing them on everything right then and there.
And it takes 30 seconds to just do it right then and there. And then your clients walk away feeling like they know and they have a good grasp of like, this is like, hey, this is the next time I'm going to reach out to you. Like this is what you can expect from this point forward. And I feel like, you know what, maybe this client has had a really hard time with photographers back end work. Like after, like they have a great client experience up until the photo shoot and through the photo shoot, but then their client experience after the photo shoot maybe isn't the best. And so you can take this as a photographer as a learning experience of, okay, what does the back end of like my client experience look like? After we're done with that photo shoot, how am I continuing communication with them? How am I keeping them like happy while I'm editing the photos? How am I delivering the photos? And then after all of that's done, after you have delivered everything, how am I keeping them engaged in a client funnel to still get them coming back and wanting more? So
and I think, and like even for myself, like I will say that I'm guilty of it in my mind. Like now I'm working on your photos. Like basically up to this point, I've been reassuring you. I've kind of been holding your hand throughout the journey, being like, hey, here's an outfit guide. Where do you want to go? Where's your location? You're going to need all this. Like I send out session prep guides, all this stuff. And now I've taken the pictures, and now my job is to edit the pictures. And I will say this, you guys, I am a fully booked wedding photographer. Plus I do sessions in the midst of it all. I am very careful about trying not to overbook my shooting schedule and editing schedule. I try to like overlap them so I know like when I'm not shooting on a Wednesday or Thursday, that doesn't mean I'm not working. Like I am literally busting my butt to get work done. I'm just editing. I'm not out in the field taking pictures. My job is to edit those pictures. And so, you know, for me, I'm kind of like fully immersed into that because you have to remember I have maybe 25 other clients that have sessions that month that I'm still having to send them their session prep guides. They're asking me, hey, Lindsay, do you like the red dress or the green dress better? And I'm having to manually email them back. So I will say, and maybe it's a fault to photographers. However, I'm trying to juggle a lot in that moment. I'm trying to edit your pictures along with a lot of other people's pictures. I have these clients who have sessions that are coming up and I'm just trying to juggle it all. So, and I might be wrong, but in my opinion, after I've touched base with you after the session, I'll be like, hey, you're going to get them probably in 2 weeks. If you don't get them in 2 weeks, you're going to get them by the contracted date. Yeah. I'm editing. Please let me edit.
Let me get my job done. Yeah.
Let me do it and then we'll talk, okay? Yeah. And again, like Lauren could be absolutely right. We don't know. We haven't personally one-on-one spoken with either the photographer or the bamboozled client, but you know, it's maybe she has had really bad experiences, so it just makes you really like guarded for future ones. She did say that she felt like she did all of her research, all of her homework. She felt like she finally got a good photographer. And the next thing she is upset about, because apparently she thought she was going to get her pictures back, all of her pictures fully edited within 2 weeks. Yep. The photographer was 15 minutes late, which the client was understanding about that. 15 minutes late to the session.
They did end up going long for the session, too.
They did end up going longer. We've talked about that in previous episodes as well. It's like if you kind of mess up as the photographer, make sure you offer incentives to your client. So I feel personally that the photographer, without trying to take the photographer's side, I feel that the photographer was trying to be like, hey, I was 15 minutes late. Let me stay here and shoot longer. I guess that's the way I kind of saw it. You know, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. Just kind of think that's what happened. But then she is concerned because she is having to see the photographer posting on social media about getting ready to deliver this gallery. And it's making the client more anxious, more upset. Apparently a week goes by.
It was her gallery too. Like they were saying, getting ready to deliver like the Smith gallery. And then
that was hers.
It didn't get delivered for like another week. Yeah. And so I think that my personal opinion on this, that was a screw up from the photographer. Like, yes, you can post on social media. Like, you can post the sneaks on social. You can post about your life on social. Like, all of those things. That's awesome. That's great. But, like, don't post that on social. Like, oh, yay, like, getting ready to deliver this gallery. If it's not, like, 5 seconds away from you clicking the send button to deliver that gallery, because that is a miscommunication that, like, didn't need to happen.
So I feel like the client is just getting very, very anxious this entire time. And as photographers, we do need to recognize that if you're posting that stuff on social media, like I feel like the client has to see the photographer's side of things. The photographer has to see the client's side of things. I can see how that made the client very uptight. There is a way, in my opinion, that first of all, I agree with Lauren. The photographer probably should not have posted getting ready to deliver this album if she was still gonna, or I don't know if it was a girl. She said it was a girl. If she wasn't literally delivering it, like to me, you better be delivering that bad boy within 24 hours. You know, the client was like, I feel like she's getting ready to hit send. That might be a little extreme to one side. Let's say this. Saying you're getting ready to deliver an album and waiting a week, then that's one extreme. Then on the client side of things, if the photographer says I'm getting ready to deliver this album and expecting them in your inbox in the next 15 seconds, that's another extreme end of the spectrum.
And I think the client did say in this situation that she did give her a little bit of grace. Like she gave her like a day or two and then like didn't get them and was like, yo, what's
it ended up being a whole week then. Yeah. So for photographers listening out there, I think it's fine if you want to post on social media that you are editing them. If you want to show behind the scenes, because you know what, you guys, there's only so much content we can make out there. There's been plenty of times I've shown behind the scenes of me editing, working my little tail off. And there's definitely been times where I'm like, hey, maybe this is going to help my clients if they see like I'm editing right now. Yeah, like so I think there's both sides to it. Clients, we're just trying to show you that we're doing our job. Yeah. Photographers, don't say you're going to deliver this session right now if you're not going to deliver it for a week.
Yeah, precisely.
Like I said, Lauren and I are not coming after the photographer. We're not coming after the client. There was mistakes made on both ends.
Yep.
situation could have been improved. However, the one thing I will say that maybe I might be biased for the photographer is that the client is pretty upset about as soon as when the final images were finally ready to be delivered. Apparently, the photographer also posted them on social media at the exact same time. Read your contracts, people. My contract says those pictures are my intellectual property. I can do what I want with them. Yeah. If you are, especially because this particular client was getting family pictures. I know that there are family photographers and newborn photographers out there that specifically have special contracts or specific packages where they say if you don't want your child's face on the internet, you have to tell me ahead of time. We have to get that sorted out ahead of time. Yeah. You cannot just assume that the photographer is not going to put that out there, because if they're not putting their work out there, how are they booking clients?
Yeah, precisely.
Simple as that.
I always ask my clients, like, in my contract, it states that, like, same thing that Lindsay said, but I always tell them when I'm booking, that's like, yo, if you're not okay with it, you need to let me know right now, because I need to go edit this clause if you are not okay with it.
Well, and I personally, like, for me, like, okay, first and foremost, I don't take pictures of a lot of children. I'm not a family photographer. I do offer family sessions, but my family session clients know that I do that on a very limited basis, and you have to be a pretty dang good client for me to, like, allow that.
Do your family photos?
Yeah, I mean, like, when I say a dang good client, like, okay, I'm not the best with kids. I've talked about this in previous situations. So if you know your kids are not the biggest fans of family pictures, like, I'm literally like, don't book me. I'm so sorry, but do not book me. I'm not good with kids. I don't know how. If your kids are like love family pictures and they're all there for it, I just shot a family this Saturday, and oh my goodness, Tucker and I got in the vehicle afterwards and we're like, those kids were amazing. They were awesome. You know, like, that's when I say, like, it has to be a pretty special client for me to take them on.
Yeah.
If my clients tell me we don't want these pictures on social media, I'm going to be like, well, you know, I might not be the photographer for you. Not that I'm not respecting that. It's just I put my images on social media. If I feel like it fits my vibe, it fits my marketing, I'm putting it on social media. And if you don't want that, my personal opinion is go find a photographer that offers that, because it is extremely hard, especially like if you think about like boudoir photographers. If you don't know what boudoir is, boudoir photography, go look it up. Clear your Google search engine after that. Anyways, but like, I know boudoir photographers that literally like charge more if their clients don't allow them to use their images on like social media, because like it's so hard to find images that you can use because people don't want that out there, and understandably so. But like, you have to understand that that's how that photographer gets work. If it said in the contract that all photos, all copyrights are retained by the photographer and those images are intellectual property of the photographer, I personally do not think that you have any right at all to tell the photographer or expect the photographer to ask your permission to put the images on social media.
And see, this is where I think Lindsay and I maybe disagree a little bit, because I personally, as a photographer, you have every right to ask me not to post these on social media. And I will 1,000% respect that.
I think before the session, before your booked,
but you have to do it beforehand. Like, you can't come to me after and say, like that.
You can't just assume I know that.
That is an expectation that, like, it states in my contract. And then I also state it, like, before the session. I'm very, like, cognizant of the fact that, like, I understand some people don't want their photos posted, and that's completely fine. But, like, you need to let me know beforehand just in case. Because, like, and if you don't want your photos posted, do you just not want them on, like, social media? And can I still use them on my website? Or do you just, like, these are your photos? Like, and that's fine. And I understand that. Like, and I will respect that in certain scenarios. Now, if every single client is coming to me and it becomes an issue, then we'll approach it then. I've only ever had one client actually say, like, yeah, please don't. And it's because it was a family client and they had foster kids, and their foster kids can't be posted on social media just out of their privacy and stuff like that. And so I just decided not to post that family gallery at all. And that was just my personal decision with that. And so I think it's like, just look at your business model as a photographer. You don't have to, like, think that Lindsay's right. You don't have to think that I'm right. It's just make sure it's communicated well beforehand, I think, is just the general consensus of it.
My one thing with that, and the reason I'm saying, like, okay, that's fine if you don't want your pictures, and I hear the foster kid. I know people who have foster children, so I fully understand that. However, you need to bring that to your photographer's attention beforehand and give your photographer the opportunity to decide if that's something they want to do or not. Because I should have every right to be like, no, I do use these as marketing. And if you need a photographer that doesn't, like, please go find one. We should have that right as photographers, just as you should have the right as the client to say, don't post them. But you need to say it before you even pay the photographer a dime or sign that contract. But in retrospect, what I'm thinking about too here is think about it in the terms of copyright release. So if a company comes to me and they're like, hey, Lindsay, we really like this picture of chickens with our 5-gallon bucket in it. We want to purchase this from you. That means I can no longer post it. I can no longer use it for marketing. And that's essentially what that client's asking me to do when they say don't post that on social media. They're asking me not to ever post it, not to ever use it. And so to me, I'm like, okay, so why am I charging a company $3,000 for a single copyright on a single image?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
I know
like, I'm just seeing it from both sides.
Like, I know where you're coming from, and I think that you can continue to see it from both sides, but I think it's just like every photographer has your own personal decision on how you're going to do it, but just make sure that you're communicating.
But if they bring it up to you ahead of time, that's the thing. As the client, you need to bring that up to the photographer ahead of time. And no, you can't wait till after you've done the session, you've paid the photographer, the photos are delivered, and then decide you have a problem with them posting the images online. That to me seems a little... Like I said, and like when I say like I'm seeing it from both sides, like why am I going to charge a company $3,000 for a single image to buy the copyright so I can never post it again and not doing the same to a family? I'm not saying I'm not respecting like the whole foster kid situation. That's not it at all. It's that you need to be upfront about that and give the photographer an opportunity to decide if this is something they want to be involved in. I 100% respect your decision on that, and maybe I would be fine with it. But like if you don't bring it to us ahead of time, how are we going to know?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's just the lack of... I think everything in this conversation boils down to communication.
Lack of communication.
Lack of communication.
It's an educational episode too.
Yes.
And then the next thing is, I mean, kind of, so like, I felt like, Lauren, correct me if you think I'm wrong. The TikTok story time from the client, it kind of started out with like some really good points. She's like, the photographer was like in violation of her contract. She didn't use these words, but basically the photographer was in violation of her contract because she didn't do this, she didn't do that, she didn't do this, she didn't do that. And then as we get going further and further into the episode, then I have my little notes written down over here. The client is mad that her husband's shorts got ruined in the water. To me,
and she did put an asterisk on there that like she wasn't anticipating going in the water, and like in a session you can say like we're not comfortable with that.
Yeah, so, I don't know where, and like again, we're only hearing one side of it. We don't know. Maybe for me personally, like one, I'm afraid of the water, so I don't ever ask anybody to go in the water. Okay,
especially in ocean. Lindsay will be far, far away from that.
Lakes, oceans,
bodies of water. Lindsay is not a fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I can handle it, but I'm not gonna be like, let's go in the lake. No, absolutely not. But anyways, so for example, I photographed a senior session when we're recording this podcast. I photographed a senior session last week. My senior wanted to go to Lake Mac, which is in Nebraska, and she had a beautiful, beautiful prom dress, and she wanted to take her horses with her. And immediately, like, Claudia's like running for the lake, like immediately once we show up. And I'm like, whoa. Let's do all of the pictures that don't require you to be in the water first. Because the second you step into that water, that prom dress, it's soaked. Like we're not doing anything else that's not you in the water. So I like kind of rein it in for a second. But let's say my client wasn't gung-ho about getting in the water. And let's say for some reason I was a photographer who wanted to do water shots. The first thing you need to do as a photographer, and again, we have no idea if this happened or not because we're only hearing the client side of the story. So we don't know. Maybe the photographer did say this, is you need to ask your client, hey, I might have some really cool ideas if you guys want to get in the water. You absolutely don't have to. Your clothes might get ruined. When I even do this when I ask clients to sit down, especially on a wedding day. I literally look at my bride and I'm like, would you feel comfortable sitting down for a photo? And like, 9 times out of 10, they're like, heck yeah, let's do it. Not a problem. And then before we even sit down, I'm like, your dress might get dirty. Like, nah, I'm not wearing it again. Like, usually, and I'm not saying you have to be a client who doesn't care. That's not what I'm saying. But like, I ask, even at an engagement session, a senior session, a wedding, even if I'm going to have my client sit down in the grass, I'm like, are you comfortable to sit down for a few photos? I feel like, especially if you're going into the water, that should definitely be a conversation that you have with your client. And maybe I did kind of like take a little peek-see at the images that the client posted, and it kind of looks like the session was done at like a beach of some sort, be it an ocean beach
1000%.
or a lake beach. And like, I guess maybe if the photographer didn't ask, maybe she just assumed that, you know, you're at a beach, we're going to go in the water. I don't know. Yeah. I kind of assume that when we do a session in the mountains, you're good with hiking a little bit. This kind of comes, I guess, with the territory. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't work with a lot of water. What do you think, Lauren?
Lindsay, you know what they say about assuming, right?
It makes bamboozled clients become unhinged. Yeah. It makes me look like a a-hole. But what do you think, Lauren?
It's fine.
Do you think that if you were doing a session, I mean, like, what do you think? Do you think that the photographer asked? Do you think that it was just assumed?
The photographer probably asked. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm sure, okay, maybe even if she didn't ask, it was like, hey, like, for this next one, let's get in the water. You can say no.
I think that at this point, the client is so frustrated about everything else.
She's saying everything.
Yeah, like, she's going to say everything.
It wasn't necessarily 100% like, this is why I'm coming on here and I'm mad. Like, she was just saying, like, all the things.
I had a client one time that told me, like, 3 months after the photos were delivered, she's like, I hate my photos. She, like, texted me that one day. I'm like, oh, I delivered these 3 months ago. Why? What's up? You know?
What's up now?
At first, I was like, oh no, what can we do? I was like having a mental breakdown, and I was like, well, talk to me. Why do you not like the photos? And she's like, my dress is too big. I'm like, are you good over there, Lauren? Smacking things.
Killed a fly.
Adding suspense. If anybody missed that, my client told me when I asked her, I'm like, why do you not like the photos? Like, what can we do? She's like, my wedding dress was just too big on me. And I'm like,
that's not my fault.
I don't know if you know this or not, but I wasn't actually in charge of alterations on your wedding dress. So
I mean, like, offer full service packages.
Sometimes clients envision something, you know, maybe their flowers weren't exactly what they wanted on their wedding day. And so that just makes them hate everything about their wedding day. The dress, the pictures, the video, who the heck knows? So this client was upset then about her husband's shorts not fitting him anymore, or they got ruined. I don't know. But, and then, you know, I feel like overall, and if you guys want to go watch the video, it's over on TikTok. I don't know how you would search for it. I guess I would just say,
I'm not going to link it because
we're not linking
sued.
It. No,
so,
we're not linking it.
You're going to have to do your own investigative work.
If you want to, I mean, I think we're really downplaying it right now on like how upset the client was.
Yeah, she ranted pretty hard, but we're also just like really trying to take both sides of it, and the fact that like there were things that the photographer could improve and the things that the client could have improved on, and it all boils down to like just a lack of communication overall and a lack of like understanding of like using this as an educational like thing to educate yourself as a photographer or as a business owner. What does the back end like client experience of the back portion of my business look like? Because we do a lot of work at getting the clients, and then making sure that you retain the clients is equally as important as getting the clients in the first place. So
but
I think
even if you're not like, even if you're like, let's say you're like me and you're shooting like 50 clients in a month, plus you have another 75 coming up in the next 6 weeks. Okay? Let's say that. I think it's very important to, you know, like I said, how I debrief my clients at the end of a session. Like, if you know you're not going to have time, or you're not going to be able to make the time to speak with them on a daily basis, which I think that's just absurd. Anyways, like you should like tell them like, hey, the next time you hear from me is going to be when your photos are delivered. Like, make sure they know that like,
and that's just that's still a part of your client flow though, Lindsay. Like that is your client flow. You have that set up, and like, so like, you know that the expectations are being communicated. Sometimes I feel like there are photographers out there who maybe go and take the photos and then don't say anything until the photos are delivered, and then the photos just get delivered, and then that's all they do. They just hit send and deliver the photos. It's like, what are you doing that is still like providing that like experience and stuff like that? And like, you don't necessarily have to add more emails, more communication, more text messages to it. Maybe it's just communicating clear, and maybe it's an automated email, or maybe it's like when you're already like emailing them to deliver the packages, maybe it's like you're delivering them and you're like adding on something right there, or you're delivering it, and you're like, also, like, if you guys loved your experience and your photos with me, like, here's the link to my Google reviews. I would love it if you could take 30 seconds to, like, leave a
photographer
review.
didn't say that, because she getting a bad review. Okay?
I hope she didn't say that either. I really hope for her sake she didn't say that. Only, please, for small businesses, do it for the mega chains all you want. I do not care. Go leave all the bad reviews you want.
I feel like
for small businesses, if you have an issue, please don't post it on Google.
Just talk to us directly.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess there's a time, and we're not asking you to skew the results, skew the reviews, but
if you don't like
be
the
mindful.
Creatives podcast, please don't leave a negative review.
Just be mindful. Maybe like just a little message. But I will say on that note is, she also, like, first of all, I've had to make revisions to my contracts over the last couple years because my husband and I went through a very, very traumatic event where we lost his dad unexpectedly. And basically, like, I will say this from a photographer standpoint is that I had a client that we were planning a funeral. We're getting ready to literally cremate my father-in-law, and I have people emailing, we know you're going through a really hard time right now, but where's my edits? Like,
give your photographer grace. Like, understand, and, like, just give people grace. I think that's what a lot of this boils down to, is give people grace.
Yeah.
Life happens on both ends. And it is like, don't be that person that just is all up in people's business all the time as a photographer, or as, like, and also, like, I don't necessarily, like, think that you need to be going out and putting people on blast or things like that. I think that a lot of things can be solved behind closed doors. And you just move along your way after the thing is resolved. You don't have to go back and use that creative or photographer business again. But that's just
and
kind
now
of
I think especially, and if you're a client listener out there, or if you're a creative listener out there, I think the key points is, if you are a client, or even us as creatives, we book photographers ourselves. I think the first thing is read the contract.
Read the contract.
And also, like, and here's the thing. It sounds like, we can't be for sure, but the way this client is painting the picture is that it sounds like this photographer was in breach of the contract. She went outside of the deliverables turnaround time that was agreed upon. Mm-hmm. So by all means, yes, the client, I mean, I guess I would rather a bad TikTok video be out there about me than getting sued, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, take your pick. Still, like, I think you just need to be upfront about everything. So if you don't want pictures of your kids out there on the internet, tell the photographer before you book them. If you're on a turnaround time, like Lauren was talking about, she had, like, a senior client who, like, needed pictures for, like, the yearbook, tell your photographer ahead of time. Be like, hey, if you're a photographer and you tragically lose a loved one and you're not going to be able to do, your edits on time, reach out to your clients and be like, hey guys, I would get your pictures edited, but we're kind of planning a funeral at the moment. Like, reach out. For the record, I did reach out to them. They just,
reached back. They just reached back.
They wanted to sue me. Nah. Oops. Yeah. So
I think we've
immediately
a ton about this, and probably could continue talking about it. But I think that the important thing to remember is, like, yes, this is a horror story, and we never want any of this to happen to us as business owners or as clients or things like that. But use this as a learning experience to evaluate your business and try and just put it in a place where this hopefully wouldn't happen to you. So, yeah, that's all I got to say. If you liked what you heard today, leave us a good review down below. Yeah, absolutely. Good. And then last week we launched the whole, if you are sharing, or a few weeks or whatever, we launched the whole, if you are sharing, you're going to get entered in a giveaway. So, Lindsay.
Oh, okay. So, I yelled at you guys. I'm so sorry if you're listening to that in your headphones. Oopsies. I was really excited to tell you guys about the giveaway. Blaring the speakers. So, our podcasts are coming out every single Thursday. So I will have stuff out there on social media for you to screenshot to show your followers and your friends that you were listening to the Cowboy Creative podcast over here on The Next Generation, and put that into your story, tag the Cowboy Creative, and you will be entered to win a coupon code for our Cowboy Creative merch. every single Friday. And then once a month at the end of the month, we'll be picking a grand prize winner out of all those entries. It's going to get free merch on us and a cute little gift basket. So make sure you're doing that. You can enter every single week. And follow us on all of our social media accounts. You have Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok. We will not be posting any TikTok videos, though, where we give bad reviews to other photographers.
Yeah, if you want that, you won't find it here.
Nope. Oops, so sorry.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, thank you for listening in on another episode of the Next Generation Cowboy Creative Style. I hope you guys grabbed something informational and also just had a good time listening to Lindsay.
And if you have a horror story as a creative or an entrepreneur or a small business, let us know. You can DM us on social media. We will keep everything anonymous. We will not use anybody's names. So you can send us your horror stories if you want to talk about
your
them.
horror stories. I'm just going to go to the depths holes of Reddit.
We're going to find them.
Find some really crazy ones. So I'd rather hear your guys' horror stories though than like randos. But yeah. For sure. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Tune in next week for another episode of The Next Generation. And till then, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.